Hello, 7th grade. I hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving. We are going to review today how to multiply and divide rational numbers. We're going to start off with our guided notes. It says, review the process for multiplying and dividing positive decimals in the table. Multiply the digits as usual, ignoring the decimal point. I don't have my marker ready to go. The product will have the same number of places behind the decimal as the multiplicand and multiplier combined. Meaning, if we look at the first number, we have two numbers behind the decimal point. Here we have one number behind the decimal point, so I can predict before I begin that there will be three numbers behind the decimal point when I'm finished. Here, unlike when you add and subtract with decimals, you can just line up your numbers on the right. There are a lot of ways to do this. You can multiply 1280 times 60 and multiply 1280 times 3 and then add the two products together. I'm just going to do the traditional algorithm. 8 times 3 is 24. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 2 is 8, and 3 had a 0 placeholder because now we're multiplying times 60, not by 6. So we need a 0 in this column. 0 times 6 is 0. 8 times 6 is 48. 6 times 2 is 12, plus 4 is 16. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 1 is 7. Now I have to count 3 places to put my decimal point. 1, 2, 3. So my final answer here is 80.640. Okay. All right, now it's time to review division. In order to make the divisor a whole number, multiply it by a power of 10. Multiply by the dividend by the same power of 10. Divide, bring the decimal directly above into the quotient. For example, well, here it's already a whole number. So we can skip steps 1 and 2. Now divide. Not sure how many times 19 can go into 43, but I can estimate how many times 20 can go into 40, and that's twice. So I will start with 2, and that would be 38. Now subtract. Bring down the 7. And I could estimate that 19 can go into 57 twice because I know 20 can go into 40 twice and 63 times. But I happen to know that because it's 19 and not 20, I can actually get exactly 3 groups of 19 out of 57. So 3 times 9 is 27. Carry the 2. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 2 is 5, with a remainder of 0. Now I have to keep in mind that the decimal point is right here. So I also have to, as it says, bring the decimal directly above into the quotient. So I'm going to bring that decimal right up here, and my answer is 2.3. Now it says to use your understanding of integer rules and multiplication and division of decimals to solve the problems below. If the signs are the same, the product or quotient is positive. But I'll go one more if there are a even number of negative signs. And I point this out because I've taken a peek at your unit test that's coming up, and the benchmark will be the same. And sometimes they have 3 numbers for you to multiply. And they do that because they want to see if you know that negative times a positive times a negative is a positive number. And that works because there are 2 negative signs, which then translates negative times a negative is a positive. They're the same. So the product or quotient is positive. And then when you have a positive number and you multiply it times another positive, it's just still positive. So what if I took that negative times a positive first and got a negative? Well, then you bring down the other negative, and negative times negative is a positive. So it doesn't really matter which way you combine them, as long as you know that if there's an even number of negative signs, it's a positive result. Negative times negative is positive. Okay, and then back to if the signs are different, the product or quotient is negative. So in our other example, let's say it would be negative, positive, positive. Well, here you have a negative times a positive, which is negative, and then you have a negative times another positive, which is also negative. So therefore, because there was an odd number of negative signs, the result is negative. Same thing if you have 3 negative numbers. Negative times a negative times a negative is a positive, but a positive times a negative is negative. So even number of negative signs is positive, odd number of negative signs is negative. That's what you have to remember. Remember, negative times negative is positive, and an odd number of negative signs is negative. Okay? I'll see you in the next video with the second page.